I never thought that sitting at my husband's funeral would end in betrayal so deep I'd feel it like a knife between my ribs. I sat in the front pew of St. Mary's Chapel, black veil clinging to my damp cheeks, the scent of lilies and sandalwood thick in the October air. Ulysses Harris, my husband of 41 years, lay 3 steps away in a mahogany coffin with gold trim. Pastor Willis had just delivered the final blessing when a man in a pinstriped suit stepped forward and opened a Navy folder. Per the last will and testament of Ulysses Harris, the lawyer announced, voice smooth, deliberate, the estate, valued at $2.4 million, shall be transferred in full to Ms. Jolene Harper. There was a long pause, one that swelled into gasps, confused murmurs. I stared ahead, not moving. It wasn't until I heard her heels, those unmistakable lacquered red soles, clicking against the marble floor that I turned. Jolene stepped out of the shadows near the rear pew, dabbing a dry eye with a tissue. She wore ivory, not black. Ivory. Her blonde hair shimmered in the chapel light, and she carried herself like a debutante at a cotillion, not a woman mourning someone else's husband. My son Terrence stood and walked toward her. His hand settled on her shoulder gently. Then he leaned in and whispered, "Too close, too tender." "You did it, Mom." The word hit me harder than the will. Mom. Not Jolene. Not Dad's friend. Mom. The lawyer held up the will, high and official. A bold blue ribbon wrapped the spine, and I could see Ulysses' signature from my seat. I didn't faint, I didn't scream, but something inside me cracked, clean and cold. I felt my tongue go dry and the air around me thin, as if the entire chapel had been vacuum sealed. My knees steadied only because I gripped the polished edge of the pew. People watched. Some whispered. Others avoided my eyes. My world, so meticulously built, was being disassembled in real time by ink, signatures, and silence. The stained glass windows blurred, as if heaven itself looked away. My husband's casket sat still, and so did I, while the woman he betrayed me with became the new inheritor of my life. My son's back was turned to me. Not once did he look. I remembered the last thing Ulysses said to me, 2 nights before his heart gave out. "Camille," he murmured, breathing shallow. "Everything's settled." I thought he meant peace. Closure. Not the burial of my dignity, but I didn't rise. I didn't speak. Not yet. Instead, I just smiled and began to plan. The woman who was just disinherited by her husband's will now sat in the funeral hall, remembering who she truly was. 2 hours had passed since the lawyer's bombshell. I sat in the reception hall across from the chapel, folding and unfolding a linen napkin on my lap. A silver tray of untouched deviled eggs glistened beside me. The crowd had thinned, as it always does once the drama's played out. Jolene had taken center table. Her heels were off now, resting daintily beside her designer purse. She sipped from a champagne flute, as if she hadn't just rewritten my life with a single notarized signature. Terrence flitted between tables, smiling tightly, pretending he didn't just break his mother's heart in public. I clutched the photo album in my lap. Leather-bound, gold-edged. Ulysses and me at our 40th anniversary dinner in Tybee Island. He wore the seersucker suit I'd picked out. I was in navy silk, his favorite color. We looked real there. In love. Anchored. "My name is Camille Harris," I said under my breath, as though I might forget. 66, widow, librarian, mother of 1. "Excuse me, Ms. Harris." Pastor Willis stood beside me, his long fingers laced in front of him. I want to apologize. I didn't know there'd be another will." His eyes flicked toward Jolene, who was now laughing at something Terrence whispered. I nodded, forgiving him for not stopping the farce in the chapel. "She asked you to end the service early." I said, not bitter, just naming it. He looked down. "Said she didn't want to prolong the pity parade." Pity parade. That was Jolene's phrase. I'd heard her say it once during Ulysses' last hospital stay. I thought she was talking about some soap opera. Now I knew better. I pressed the photo album closed and stood, feeling the weight of every eye. My name was still on the deed to the house, for now. And the life insurance policies? I wasn't so sure anymore. "Camille," Pastor Willis began gently, "if you need anything—" "I need a glass of water and a quiet hour," I interrupted. "That's all." He looked relieved to have something manageable to offer. I'll make sure the church hall stays open for you. I nodded and stepped toward the hallway, but not before catching Jolene's whisper. I expected more of a scene, honestly. Not today. I walked past her without a glance. Let them think I was retreating. Let them believe I was broken. Let them enjoy their little parade. They hadn't seen the librarian catalog her losses yet. And when I did, every record would be time-stamped, filed, and submitted. For the first time in years, I was about to reshelve my life. After Jolene hijacked my husband's funeral, I woke the next morning, unsure where grief ended and fury began. The garden still smelled like rosemary and lemon balm, the kind of scent that clings to the skin even after you come back inside. I stood on the cracked brick path, barefoot, the hem of my nightgown brushing against damp grass. October in Savannah has a cool bite in the morning, but the sunlight was warm enough to fool me into thinking it might all be fine again. I'd planted every rose bush myself. 18 years ago, back when Ulysses said he wanted a backyard that smelled like Sunday morning, I tended those blooms like children, pruned them through hurricanes and droughts, fed them coffee grounds and secrets, and now the deed with my name on it was under assault. The sound came sharp, tires crunching on gravel. Jolene, behind the wheel of Ulysses' 1989 Cadillac Eldorado, her platinum curls blowing in the wind like she was auditioning for a jazz album cover. She slowed just enough for me to hear the saxophone blaring from the speakers. Coltrane, maybe. The top was down. She didn't stop, didn't wave, didn't even glance. Just rode past the garden I built, in the car he loved, like she'd won something. I went inside, knees stiff, heart sore. The kitchen clock read 7:48 a.m. I sat at the table and stared at the old ledger I kept in a drawer by the fridge. The one where I tracked every dollar. Groceries, maintenance, pills, tax bills. Ulysses used to laugh at it. "Camille, you tally nickels like they're gold doubloons," he once said. But when you grow up in the East Side projects, raised by a woman who worked 3 jobs and died with 1 pair of good shoes, you learn early that coins are not just metal. They're control. The joint account we shared had been frozen. I'd called the bank last night. My pension was supposed to hit on the 3rd of the month. It hadn't. My ATM card beeped useless at the Walgreens on Victory Drive. And then Darla knocked. She wore her mail carrier uniform, sun visor askew. "Camille, I know it ain't my business," she said, lowering her voice. "But I saw a change of address slip come through yesterday. Same house. Different name. Jolene Harper." I felt the heat rise in my neck. "She's rerouting mail already?" Darla nodded, biting her lip. "She's moving fast." I looked around my kitchen. Everything was mine, from the chipped enamel stove to the faded sunflower magnets on the fridge. But for the first time in 4 decades, the space felt temporary. I picked up the water bill sitting on the counter, still in my name. Good. She could drive past my house all she wanted. But until that deed was out of my hands, she wasn't the one rooted here. I was. The morning after Jolene flaunted Ulysses' car past my garden, I stood in the one room she hadn't touched yet, his study. It still smelled like cedar and old tobacco. Light filtered through the lace curtains and stripes, falling across the worn leather chair. The bookcases packed tight with jazz biographies, Black history monographs, and old vinyls he swore he'd digitize one day. His cane leaned where he always left it, hooked over the corner of the desk, as if he might stroll in and ask me to fetch his glasses. Instead, I stood alone, watching dust drift through the sunlight like ash. I didn't come in here often. Ulysses had made it his domain. The war room, he'd call it, half joking. But today, I needed to remember who Jolene was before she became the mistress who inherited. She came into our lives in spring 2021. Terrence had just taken a faculty position at the Savannah College of Art and Design. Ulysses, semi-retired from the Board of Trustees, started spending more time on campus, mentoring. That's how we met her, Jolene Harper. She came from Charleston, had a master's in nonprofit development, and a minor in flattery. She was introduced to me at our anniversary dinner, of all places. "Queen Mother," she'd called me, setting down a tray of shrimp and grits with the flair of a woman auditioning for a sitcom. "You raised a king and married one." I thought it was performative then, over-familiar and syrupy. But Ulysses laughed, beamed even, as if he were hearing a hymn. She made peach cobbler that night. Overly sweet, undercooked. I ate every bite. I should have paid more attention when she started showing up uninvited. Sunday brunches, board meetings, even his physical therapy session. When I asked Ulysses if she didn't have a home of her own, he waved it off. She's just eager, Camille. Young women today move quick. He wasn't wrong. 3 months later, she had a key. Now, in the study, I noticed something I hadn't before. On the bookshelf, tucked between a book on Frederick Douglass and a signed memoir by Wynton Marsalis, sat a photo in a silver frame. I pulled it out gently. It was Jolene and Ulysses, arm in arm on a sunlit porch. Not ours. The timestamp in the corner said May 2023. A handwritten sticky note on the back read, Charleston weekend, solo retreat. Love you forever, Jay. Solo retreat. That's what he told me. But 2 names were on the hotel invoice I later found. Ulysses Harris and Jolene Harper. I slid the photo back and closed the office door behind me, locking it with the old brass key I kept on a chain in my apron. This war wasn't new. It had just gone silent until now. After uncovering the photo and hotel invoice, I sat down to do what I do best: document everything. 3 days after the funeral, the kitchen smelled like vinegar and lemon oil. I'd been cleaning in circles, wiping the same counters, over and over. When the noise in your head won't stop, sometimes your hands have to. I pulled out my old ledger, the same one I'd used since we bought the house in, '89. Dark green cover, creased at the spine. Inside were pages and pages of line items. Grocery lists, appliance repairs, gas station receipts, co-pays, the mundane stuff that tells the truth of a life. I stacked it beside a pile of manila folders I'd retrieved from the basement. One for each year. One for every tax return, credit card statement, canceled check, and utility bill. There was something sacred about the math. It couldn't lie. Mrs. Leona from First Baptist rang the doorbell just after noon. "Baby, I brought sandwiches," she said, brushing past me with a grocery bag and her purse swinging. "Tuna and pimento. And I brought gloves. I heard you've been doing battle in here." Leona was 72, small but unyielding. She used to be a nurse, and her presence always felt like triage. Gentle, but with a plan. We sat down at the table and started sorting through boxes. It didn't take long. I had poured $108,200 of my own money into this household over the last 19 years. Not our money, mine. From my pension. From the small inheritance my mother left me. From savings I'd built by clipping coupons and wearing shoes until they cracked. Gas bills during the recession, $3,212. Ulysses, insulin and heart meds, $7,400. Groceries averaged $275 a month. And when Terrence had that knee surgery in grad school, I covered the $6,800 gap after his insurance lapse. "I never tracked it all before," I whispered. "I just kept giving." Leona placed a hand on mine. "You were being a wife, Camille. A mother. That ain't weakness. That's faithfulness." We both stared at the check I'd written 2 years ago to cover the new roof, $12,000. Ulysses had insisted we get architectural shingles. Said it'd last longer. I remember how proud he looked when the work was done. Jolene had come by that evening with a bottle of wine, uninvited, to toast the upgrade. She stood under that roof. She toasted what she didn't pay for. And now she thought she owned it. I closed the ledger and placed my palm on top of it, like a final benediction. "Leona," I said, "this ain't over." She nodded. "Let me know when we move to the next step." And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. I had my first receipt and my first ally. After tallying nearly 2 decades of care, I couldn't stop thinking about the phone I found in his car last spring. March 2023. I had driven Ulysses to his cardiology appointment on Habersham. He wasn't supposed to drive anymore, but Lord knows he kept sneaking out with the Cadillac. When we got back that day, I cleaned out the front seat like always. Empty pill bottles, parking stubs, those little peppermint wrappers he loved. That's when I saw it. A slim, silver cell phone wedged between the passenger seat and the center console. Not the one he always carried. This one was newer, unfamiliar. I picked it up and felt my gut twist. No password. Just a background photo of a beach at sunset. not one we'd ever visited. The message threads were few, but damning. Joe Redheart. Got the suite again. Same one you like. Bring the silk shirt. Ulysses. I miss you too, Joe. Soon. Joe Redheart. Don't forget the charger this time. And the good lotion-throwing kisses. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't throw it across the room. Instead, I set it back where I found it, heart-pounding, and said nothing. I wanted to believe it was something else. An old message. A prank. Anything but what it clearly was. He came out of the bathroom whistling and said, "I'll be in the study." Later that week, $3,200 disappeared from our joint account, labeled consulting services. The same label I'd seen a dozen times over the last year. Always the same amount. Always monthly. I thought it was for board work, university stuff. But now I saw it clearly. Jolene wasn't just a side story. She was a funded operation. And I had helped finance her rise without even knowing it. The texts were still on the phone when I checked again 2 nights ago. I'd kept it, hidden in the back of my sock drawer, just in case. Evidence now. My fingers shook as I screenshot every message, time-stamped and preserved. In the Photos app, I found selfies. Her in his blazer. Him in a hotel robe. Behind them, Charleston skyline. A rooftop bar we'd once visited together during our 30th anniversary trip. Same suite. Different woman. I scrolled back to a message from last December. Joe Redheart. You'll fix the will, right? I can't keep being invisible. And his reply, after the holidays. Quietly. He was going to erase me in silence. Behind my back. One document at a time. But I wasn't silent anymore. I renamed the folder on the phone, Evidence JH, and I made a copy on a USB drive. They thought I'd go quietly. They thought wrong. After uncovering the second phone and saving the texts, I thought I'd seen the worst. Then came the eviction notice. October 6th, 2024. A Sunday. The sky was bruised with clouds, the kind of gray that never lifts. I was watering the begonias near the porch when a silver SUV pulled up to the curb. A young man in a navy vest stepped out, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Harris?" I nodded, towel in one hand, hose in the other. "Delivery for you. Signature not required." He handed me a thick envelope and turned before I could ask a question. I opened it right there on the steps, hands damp and shaking. Notice to vacate. 30 days. Issued by the Harper Living Trust. I read it twice before my knees gave. Sat down hard on the porch swing. The letter was crisp, freshly notarized, with my address listed in neat black font like it belonged to someone else. The name at the bottom, Jolene Harper, executor, made my throat close. She hadn't even waited a full week since the funeral. Later that afternoon, I went down to the Chatham County Clerk's office. The air inside was stale and overcooled. I waited in line behind a man arguing about a parking fine, my eviction notice folded in my purse like a dirty secret. When I finally reached the desk, Ms. Brooks, tight curls, glasses on a chain, typed in my property info. She squinted at the screen, then leaned closer. "Ma'am, this says the property title was transferred October 4th to the Harper Living Trust." My voice barely came out. "Transferred? How?" She turned the screen toward me. There it was. My address and Jolene's name. She filed the deed at 9:14 a.m., day after the service, Ms. Brooks whispered, glancing around. But something about it don't smell right. You the only Camille Harris in this system, and your name is still on some utilities. I blinked. You think it's fraudulent? I think she moved too fast and too quiet. She handed me a printout. You didn't sign this. No transfer on record from you. You might still have a case. I left the office clutching the deed record like it was an oxygen mask. Back in my car, I stared at Jolene's printed signature until it blurred. This wasn't grief anymore. This was warfare. She had come for my house, my name, my history. I drove straight home and sat in the driveway with the windows up, watching the wind shift the trees. I had 30 days, according to her. 30 days to disappear. But she didn't know I'd already started my own clock. I wasn't going to pack. I was going to fight. After the eviction notice, I returned home to find Ulysses, study stripped bare, and my son holding the box. October 9th, 2024. Late afternoon. The light through the front windows was gold, but what I saw when I stepped inside made my blood run cold. Terrence stood in the center of the study, arms tense around a cardboard box labeled Personal Effects. The shelves were empty, the desk drawers hung open like broken mouths. Ulysses, war medals, framed degrees, old journals, all gone. "What are you doing?" I asked, voice low but firm. He didn't look at me at first, just adjusted the flaps on the box like a child delaying a scolding. "We're clearing out things for the estate," he said finally, avoiding my eyes. "Clearing? Without asking me?" "It's not your house anymore, Mom." That landed like a punch. I stepped forward, trying to keep steady. "I buried your father less than a week ago, and you're hauling out his memories like they're yard sale junk?" He finally looked up. His face was pale, jaw clenched. "You should have signed power of attorney last year. We tried to do this the easy way." That stopped me cold. "What?" He exhaled sharply, like he'd been waiting to say it. "Dad wanted things handled without court fights. Jolene and I, we asked you, you refused. So yes, we had to make other arrangements." I stepped back like the floor was falling away. What journal did you take?" He froze. Then, slowly, deliberately, he turned and slid the box behind him. "I don't know what you're talking about," but I saw it in his eyes. He'd taken the red leather-bound one. The one Ulysses started in 2023 when his heart started failing. The one he wouldn't let anyone read. Not even me. I crossed my arms. "That journal was private. That was your father's record of things. Not yours." "Not hers!" Terrence stepped toward me then, and for a brief second, I saw a flicker of something. Regret? Shame? But it passed. "You're making this harder than it has to be." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Because later that night, while Jolene posted another cryptic message on social media, removing clutter, making space for the next chapter. #blessed. I found what they missed. A partial draft of Ulysses' will, dated July 2023. Folded behind an old stack of tax files in the kitchen drawer I used for birthday candles and batteries. The page was faded, unsigned, but clear. "To my wife, Camille Harris, I leave full control of the Harris estate, including the primary residence and all associated accounts." I read the line 3 times, hand over my mouth. They thought they'd erased me. But Ulysses had started to correct that before the end. He just hadn't finished the paper trail. Yet, after discovering the partial will draft, I thought maybe, just maybe, Terrence would come to his senses. Instead, he came with a check. October 10th, 2024. Midday. The heat clung to my skin like insult. I stood outside my attorney's building, brick facade, cracked pavement, when I saw them pull in, Terrence in his navy blazer, Jolene behind the wheel of my husband's Cadillac, sipping sweet tea from a to-go cup like she was waiting for valet service. I didn't know they'd followed me here. They stepped out like they owned the sidewalk. "Mom," Terrence began, soft like pity, "we don't want this to get ugly." "It's already ugly," I said, not moving. He held out an envelope. Thick, cream-colored, formal. Inside, a cashier's check. $50,000. Made out to Camille Harris. $50,000, he said. "To walk away gracefully. You can start fresh somewhere else. Smaller place, maybe closer to the coast. You like Tybee, right?" I stared at the check. No mention of the house. No mention of Ulysses, pension, his life insurance, the stocks we talked about in the final year of his life. Just $50,000. Like hush money for 41 years of marriage. Behind him, Jolene leaned against the car, sunglasses on, smiling like a woman who had already measured the drapes. "You deserve to rest, Camille," she called sweetly. "You've worked hard all your life. Let us take it from here." I folded the check slowly and handed it back. "Let me be very clear," I said, locking eyes with my son. "There is nothing graceful about what you're doing. This isn't a resolution, it's a bribe." Jolene chuckled like it was cute. Terrence looked down. "I'm offering peace, Mom," he mumbled. "No," I corrected. "You're offering silence, and I'm not selling mine." A moment passed. He didn't argue, he just nodded, stuffed the envelope back into his jacket, and said, "We tried." Then they left. I didn't go inside the lawyer's office that day. I wasn't ready to make that move yet. Not without the right piece of paper. But I stood under the overhang and let the clouds pass. I listened to the traffic and the hush of Savannah's breeze shifting the moss in the oaks. And I knew something they didn't. The draft I found was only a page. But Ulysses didn't do things halfway. If he started it, he finished it. Somewhere in this city, the real will existed. Signed, witnessed, hidden. And I would find it. Because I wasn't just fighting for bricks or bank account. I was fighting for the truth of a life I had built, and the dignity they tried to erase. After rejecting their hush money, I went searching for what they feared most, the original will. And I found it. October 11th, 2024. Nearly midnight. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's listening. I padded barefoot up the attic steps, flashlight in one hand, keyring in the other. Ulysses hated that attic, called it a heat trap for junk. But I remembered something strange he'd said last winter, when I was boxing up old ornaments. Don't go tossing any of my fireproof cases, even the ones collecting dust, just in case. He had a tone when he said, just in case. Not fear, not warning, more like preparation. I found the case behind a stack of plastic wreaths. Black, locked, heavier than I remembered. The combination clicked after 2 tries. Our anniversary date. Inside, a thick manila envelope. A rubber-banded set of USBs. A copy of his birth certificate. His father's pocket watch. And the one thing that stopped my breath cold. The will. Stamped. Notarized. Signed. Date. February 22nd, 2024. I sank to the attic floor and pulled my glasses from my pocket. The will was typed, pristine, printed on embossed bond paper with gold corners. And there it was, plain and holy. To my beloved wife, Camille Harris, I leave all assets, financial and physical, including our marital residence at 312 Lucerne Street, Savannah, Georgia, all insurance policies, retirement accounts, and stock portfolios currently held under my name, and the authority to execute decisions on my behalf without the need for third-party approval. Witnessed and signed by Deacon Riley and Mrs. Hetty Boone, both names I knew from First Baptist, both steady as stone. I clutched the folder to my chest. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been an hour. The first text came through at 12:17 a.m. Jolene. Still time to settle this like adults, Camille. I stared at the screen. She knew I was close. I took a photo of the will and saved it to my phone, then emailed it to myself and uploaded a copy to the USB. Then I placed it in a fresh envelope and slid it beneath my mattress. I wasn't calling Brenda yet, not until morning, but I slept differently that night. Not easy, not peaceful, but with a kind of steel in my spine I hadn't felt in years. Let Jolene plot her next move. Let Terrence rehearse his next plea. I had the truth now, signed, sealed, and witnessed, and soon the court would have it too. With the original will secured, I made my first legal move and stopped Jolene's grab in its tracks. October 12th, 2024. The sun hadn't climbed past the mossy rooftops when I stepped into the downtown probate clerk's office, folder clutched tight under my arm. The courthouse was half awake, fluorescent lights buzzing, coffee brewing behind someone's desk. Brenda Sloan met me in the lobby, just like she promised on the phone at 7:03 a.m. "Camille," she said, shaking my hand with a grip like steel. "You came prepared?" "I brought the full gospel," I replied, and handed her the envelope. Brenda was a local legend, Savannah-born, Spelman-educated, known for walking into court with a smile and leaving with signed orders. She sat me down in a corner conference room with her legal assistant, Kendra, who fired up a scanner and began digitizing everything. The moment Brenda laid eyes on the will, she nodded slowly. "Original? Unaltered? Notarized? 2 independent witnesses. This is it." Then she pointed to the bottom of the form. "File date, February 22nd. That beats Jolene's by over 7 months." She stood, straightened her blazer. "We're filing an emergency injunction." By 10:15 a.m., it was done. Will contest number 2024 PB1987. Filed under my name. Emergency motion to freeze all estate disbursements. Granted. Jolene's access to bank accounts? Frozen. Stock transfers? Halted. Real estate reassignment? Blocked. Pending verification of the valid will. The clerk stamped each document with sharp precision. The sound was louder than expected. Final, like a gavel. On my way out, Brenda pulled me aside. "This won't stop her from fighting. She's going to push back. But you've bought yourself time. And control. We'll make this stick. Outside, the courthouse steps felt taller than I remembered. The marble hot beneath my shoes. I didn't rush. I stood there a long while, watching a wedding party spill out from a different courtroom. The bride laughed into her veil. Someone cheered. Across the street, I saw Jolene's Cadillac parked crooked near a hydrant. I didn't flinch. I didn't wave. I turned and walked the other direction. My name wasn't just on some piece of paper anymore. It was now on a court record. A legal challenge. A frozen trust. I wasn't a widow waiting to be erased. I was the executor of my own survival. Let Jolene call her lawyer. Let Terrence sulk. I had just pulled the emergency brake on their little heist. And next I'd show them the receipts. After freezing the estate, I spent the next day building a fortress of proof, with digital files, hard copies, and backup receipts. October 13th, 2024. Sunday again. Brenda's law office on West Hull Street smelled like printer ink and jasmine tea. I brought donuts. Kendra brought determination. By 9 a.m., we were scanning everything. Bank statements, property tax records, screenshots of the secret phone's text messages, a PDF of the Charleston Hotel invoice with Jolene's signature, and, most damning, a voice memo. Ulysses. Voice. Raspy. Recorded on February 20th, 2 days before he signed the final will. I want Camille to have it all, he said. The house, the stocks, the accounts. She's the one who held it all together. Make sure this gets to the right people if something happens. Kendra stared at the screen when she heard it. You sure you want to use this? I'm sure, I said. We uploaded it all into a Dropbox folder labeled Harris Will Proof. I watched as each file loaded, one by one, until the bar turned green. Brenda handed me a portable USB drive. Hard copy, she said, and keep it in 2 places. You already know what kind of people you're dealing with. That afternoon, Jolene's counterstrike came. A blog post shared across Savannah's community Facebook groups. Concerned for our elders, the risks of undiagnosed cognitive decline. The article didn't mention me by name, but it didn't have to. It described a recent widow, mid-60s, prone to delusions of control and mismanagement of funds. The tone was syrupy concern with a side of slander. Kendra saw it first. She's trying to poison the well, she muttered. I smiled for the first time that day. Let her. We've got the well tested, documented, and under lock. Brenda added the post to our file. It would backfire. Smearing a retired librarian with an impeccable record? Good luck with that. Before I left, Brenda placed a hand on my shoulder. Camille, they're not afraid of you. Not really. They're afraid of your memory, your records, your paper trail. She was right. Because I had the timeline, I had the voice, I had the words, printed and preserved. And now I had a file so complete it could cross states and still win in any court that knew how to read. That night, I sat at my dining table with both the USB and the printed will under my palm. Jolene could spread lies. Terrence could pretend I was senile. But I had something stronger than their schemes. Documentation. And come morning, I was going to call 3 people who had no patience for liars. The ones who had signed that will with Ulysses. The ones who remembered everything. And they'd testify. Because truth like this never dies in silence. After locking down the paper trail, I called in the people who would bring the truth into the light with me. October 14th, 2024. Monday. The First Baptist Church basement smelled of floor wax and coffee. The folding chairs creaked under familiar weight. Trust, history, and what my mama used to call the ones who know you're real. Pastor Willis sat beside me at the head of the table. On my other side was Hetty Boone, still sharp at 78, wearing her church hat like she was going to Sunday service. And next to her, Deacon Riley, in suspenders and a pressed collar, tapping his cane for emphasis. I passed the printed copy of the February will to each of them. They read it in silence, eyes moving slow but sure. I remember that day clear as daylight, said Mrs. Boone. Ulysses looked me straight in the eye and said, This here is for Camille. I want no confusion later. Deacon Riley nodded. He called me twice before we signed it, made sure we knew what we were witnessing. I pulled out my phone and showed them the Dropbox folder Brenda had compiled. This is all going to court. I just need you to say what you saw, what you know. Pastor Willis reached across the table and touched my hand. You'll have our full support. And the churches. I hadn't asked for that, but I accepted it, quietly. Gratefully. The pastor cleared his throat. You know this won't be easy. Jolene's already been whispering in ears, saying you're unwell. I've been called worse, I said. He smiled. So has the truth. I texted my cousin Naya next. Charleston, born and fearless. Ulysses had confided in her when things got shaky between us last year. She'd seen Jolene once at a fundraiser and never liked the look in her eye. She's a climber, Nia had said. The kind that steps on necks and heels, Nia agreed to testify. Said she still had texts from Ulysses, venting about the pressure to rewrite my legacy. By 3 p.m., I had a group text with 5 names in it. Each person had agreed to show up. In court. In person. We named the thread Will Witnesses. That evening, the First Baptist Women's Committee sent me a note, printed, signed by 9 members. It read, Mrs. Camille Harris has our full endorsement and support in her legal proceedings. We stand by her integrity, her stewardship, and her long-standing record of community care. I tacked it on the fridge, right next to my old Sunday school photo. Let Jolene call me senile. Let Terrence talk about graceful exits. I had the truth. And now, I had witnesses. With my witnesses ready and the will secured, I made the next move. Formal notice to vacate and fraud alert. Delivered by certified mail. October 15th, 2024. Liberty Street. UPS store. The clerk behind the counter raised her eyebrows when I dropped 3 crisp manila envelopes on the scale. All certified? She asked. All, I said. And trackable. I watched as she weighed them, affixed barcodes, and handed me the slips. Each one marked with a delivery guarantee and signature requirement. Recipient 1, Jolene Harper. Recipient 2, Terrence Harris. Recipient 3, Harper Living Trust Legal Counsel. Inside each envelope was a 4-page letter, drafted by Brenda's paralegal and notarized by Kendra. No frills, just facts. You are hereby notified that the will dated March 2024, presented at the funeral of Mr. Ulysses Harris, is under formal contest. A legally binding, witnessed will dated February 22, 2024, has been submitted to Chatham County Probate Court and is currently under review. Until the court rules on the matter, you are ordered to cease and desist all actions regarding residence, financial withdrawals, property management, or claims under the contested will. Any further actions may be deemed fraudulent and subject to prosecution under Georgia probate and civil statute. Attached were certified copies of the valid will's cover page and a screenshot of the docket filing. Number 2024 PB 1987. I tucked the delivery receipts into my wallet like holy scripture. That night, Jolene posted on her social media again. Getting lawyered up, honey. If folks want to drag this through court, let's do it. Nail polish, medium skin tone. Some of us know how to win. She thought it was a game. But court isn't played in hashtags. It's played in documents, dates, witnesses, certified mail. Back at home, I laid the return receipts on my dining table, right beside a fresh pot of tea and a copy of the deed she tried to steal. Brenda submitted all 3 letters to Judge Keller's docket before end of day. You've officially put them on notice, she said. From this moment forward, they're under the eye of the court. I sat in the quiet of my living room and stared at the fireplace. It hadn't been lit since Ulysses passed. But tonight, I struck a match and watched the flame catch. I wasn't burning anything down. I was building heat. Let them scurry, reframe, deny. The deadline clock was now ticking for them, not me. And this time, I wouldn't just hold the receipts. I'd deliver them in public, under oath, with witnesses. After my certified letters landed, Jolene hit back the only way she knew how: public spectacle and a camera crew. October 16th, 2024. 11:45 a.m. I'd just stepped onto the porch with my tea when I saw the white van crawl up Lucerne Street like it was casing a crime scene. Channel 7 News, logo shining. A cameraman in cargo shorts hopped out before the engine stopped. Behind him, Jolene. She wore a black wrap dress, pearls, heels sharp as razors. Her makeup was flawless. Too flawless. She marched straight toward my porch with a microphone already clipped to her blouse. I didn't flinch. My Ring camera was already recording. Miss Harris, She called out sweetly, "Do you care to comment on the elder rage allegations brought against you?" Elder. Rage. The cameraman raised his lens. I raised my brow. "Is that what we're calling boundaries now?" I said calmly. She forced a laugh. "Our viewers deserve to hear your side. I'm here to offer a fair." "You're here because you've lost control," I said, stepping closer, tea still in hand. "But don't worry. You're about to get very familiar with Judge Keller." She blinked. Then her smile snapped. "You can't stop the press," she hissed, real voice now leaking through the gloss. I leaned against the porch railing. "The press? No, but I can make sure every word you say becomes part of the court record." The cameraman hesitated, clearly unsure whether he'd wandered into a story or a defamation suit. I pointed to the doorbell camera. "This is being recorded. Want to keep going?" She turned to him fast. "Cut it." He lowered the lens. I stood in silence as she stormed back to the Cadillac. She didn't even get inside before pulling out her phone and unleashing another post. "Some folks are so bitter they forget how to age gracefully. Hashtags @C." 2 hours later, my HOA president, Ms. Lewins, retired Air Force, now full-time justice junkie, emailed a clip from the ring footage directly to Brenda. Subject: Uninvited filming attempt. Lucerne Street, October 16, 24. Attached: full HD video with timestamp. Brenda added it to our court file immediately. "This strengthens our case," she said. "Shows harassment and desperation." That evening I put a fresh battery in the ring and changed the Wi-Fi password. Security was no longer optional. Locks, files, footage. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about being believed in public. And Jolene had just walked herself right into evidence. The day after Jolene's front porch stunt, we met under oath, witnesses seated, documents loaded, and truth about to breathe. October 17, 2024. 9 a.m. sharp, Savannah County Probate Court. It was the kind of morning you feel in your bones, cool air with tension threaded through it like thread in a needle. I wore navy, the same shade as my anniversary dress. Brenda stood beside me in slate gray, holding the original will like a sacred scroll. The courtroom was packed. Folks came early to see a fight, some from church, some from the neighborhood, even a few curious from the SCAD campus. Jolene had turned this into a performance. Fine. Let them see every scene. Terrence sat 2 rows behind her, lips tight. He didn't meet my eyes. Jolene entered in a full black suit. Veil, gloves, dramatics. You'd think she was reburying Ulysses. She clutched the March will to her chest like a prayer book. And for a moment, I almost admired her nerve. Judge Keller took the bench at 9:03 a.m. tall, blunt, and known for hating theatrics. "This court will review the contested wills in the matter of estate of Ulysses Harris, docket number 2024 PB1987, she said, adjusting her glasses. "Counsel, proceed," Brenda stood. "Your Honor, we will demonstrate that the March 2024 will presented by Ms. Harper is invalid due to supersession by a duly executed and witnessed will dated February 22, 2024. She handed over the document. The seal gleamed in the courtroom light. Witnesses to that will are present. Supporting evidence includes audio recordings, digital files, estate ledgers, and prior financial records, all cross-referenced and time-stamped. The clerk accepted the folder. Judge Keller flipped through the first few pages, eyes steady. Jolene's lawyer, a young man who looked like he practiced in the mirror, rose and objected, citing possible undue influence and mental confusion. The judge didn't even look up. "Is the February will signed and witnessed?" "Yes, Your Honor," Brenda replied. "And are those witnesses in court?" "They are." The judge nodded. "We will hear them shortly. In the meantime, Ms. Harper, please relinquish any property documents in your possession pending this review." Jolene stood, shaking. "This is outrageous. That woman manipulated an old man who barely knew where he was." Judge Keller banged her gavel once, sharp. "Sit down, Ms. Harper." Silence blanketed the courtroom like dust. Behind me, Mrs. Boone squeezed my shoulder. I didn't turn to look at Terrence. I didn't need to. His silence was its own confession. The judge turned to Brenda. "You may present your evidence." And with that, the stage was set. The court was ready. And every lie they told was about to meet a receipt with my name on it. With the courtroom hushed, Brenda began laying out the truth. One document, one witness, one devastating fact at a time. October 17th, 2024. 11:12 a.m., Brenda stepped forward with the calm of someone who'd done this before, and the fire of someone who knew her client had been wronged. "Your Honor," she began, "this is the original, notarized will, executed on February 22nd, 2024, with 2 witnesses present, both here today. It supersedes any prior version." Judge Keller took the document, held it to the light, then nodded to the clerk, who stamped it for the record. Brenda continued, "We have voice recordings from the deceased, Mr. Ulysses Harris, expressing clear intent that his wife, Camille Harris, receive the full estate. Audio file, timestamped February 20th, 2024, 2 days before execution." The judge listened with earbuds. Everyone else watched her face. No one spoke as Ulysses' voice crackled through. "Make sure Camille gets everything. She's earned it. Don't let anyone twist this later." Jolene looked like she'd been slapped. Brenda handed over a side-by-side comparison of the 2 wills, ours on one side, Jolene's forged version on the other. The dates didn't lie. Additionally, Brenda said, the March will submitted by Ms. Harper was filed with no record of execution witnesses and appears to be generated on a template site, with a suspicious absence of notarization. And it was dated after the February will, making it irrelevant under Georgia succession law. Jolene's lawyer tried to interject, but the judge waved him off. "Witnesses for the February will, please step forward." Mrs. Boone walked to the podium with grace and weight. "I saw Ulysses sign that paper," she said. "He was clear, said, 'This is for Camille,' looked me in the eyes." Then Deacon Riley took the stand. "He asked me to be there because he didn't trust what was happening behind his back. He said, 'I need this locked down before it's too late.'" Finally, Brenda showed the financial trail, my ledger, the USB copies, the hidden phone texts. "The one that did the most damage?" Joe Redhart. "You'll fix the will, right? I can't keep being invisible." Ulysses. "After the holidays." "Quietly." Jolene gasped audibly. Terrence, my own son, turned white. His mouth parted, but no words came. The judge looked up, slow and deliberate. "This court recognizes the February 22nd, 2024, will as the valid last will and testament of Mr. Ulysses Harris." Bang of the gavel. Silence. Then a murmur rolled through the gallery like thunder rumbling, distant and sure. Judge Keller turned to me. "Mrs. Harris, you are now the sole legal heir and estate executor." I closed my eyes, not to weep, but to breathe. After the gavel fell, I walked out not just with the truth confirmed, but with my dignity intact and my name restored. October 17th, 2024, 12:05 p.m. The courthouse steps were warm beneath my shoes. I held the envelope tight in my left hand. The title deed, freshly stamped, corner still warm from the clerk's seal. In my right, a brass key. The original one. The one I'd tucked in my apron pocket for years. Jolene burst out of the courtroom moments later, shouting at no one in particular. "She lied! This whole thing was orchestrated! That judge is biased!" The bailiff followed close behind. "Ma'am, you need to leave the premises." Her heels clicked furiously as she crossed the sidewalk, her fury turning heads, but not sympathy. Terrence lingered by the courthouse door, pale and motionless. He didn't try to speak to me. I didn't offer him the space. Some things don't need closure. They just need distance. Brenda joined me at the bottom of the steps, sunglasses on, folder tucked beneath her arm. "You did it," she said. "No," I corrected softly. "We did," she smiled. "What will you do first?" I looked down at the key. "Go home." Back at 312 Lucerne Street, I turned the lock slowly. The air inside was still, quiet, but not empty. It was full of memory. Good, bad, complicated. Just like any life. I stepped into the living room and closed the door behind me. Every chair was still where I left it. Every photo still hung. Jolene hadn't had time to leave her fingerprints. I walked to the mantel and placed the deed next to a photo of Ulysses and me on Tybee Island 40 years ago. He was laughing. I was wearing red. In the kitchen, I opened the pantry and pulled out a small box tucked behind the oatmeal. Inside, Ulysses' pocket watch, the one from his father. Gold, dented, still ticking faintly. He had tried Too late, maybe, but he had tried to make it right. And now I had restored the truth. Outside, the wind rustled the roses. I went out and knelt beside them, pressing my hand to the soil. Still mine. Always mine. Later that evening, Pastor Willis stopped by with a cobbler from the church ladies. "We heard," he said, smiling at the porch light. "Word travels fast." I just nodded, tired and satisfied. "You staying here now?" he asked. I looked at the key still in my palm. Warm now. I never left. Not really. I just had to reclaim what was already mine, with documents, with witnesses, with patience. And now, with peace. No gloating, no revenge, just the sound of a door closing gently behind me, and a home that knew I had returned.